Hello everybody and welcome to this, which I think is the 16th Cult Women's Voices event, which is fantastic. They're a small and perfectly formed group today because there's a lot of clashing events, including the World Credit Union Conference and several events going on in the US as well. But it's great to see some of you here, and as always this will go up online and be able to look people to view it on YouTube after the event. So for those who don't know who we are, I'm Rebecca. I'm executive editor of Cult News, and with me is Sarah Aldred, who's head of international partnerships at the Cult College. So Cult News is a magazine about and for the global cooperative community, and the college is the educational arm of the movement. And so I said we've done 16 of these so far, which has been going on for over a year, which is fantastic. And it's just been great to speak to some of the amazing women throughout co-ops around the world. And for those of you who don't know, this whole webinar series came out of the Cult Women's Challenge, which was started about 10 years ago now in Manchester. And it was designed to empower women working in the cult movement, looking at questions like, how can women support each other? How can we build confidence? How can we ensure a healthy work-life balance? So today I'm delighted to introduce Luann Werner. Say hi, Luann. Give us a wave.
Hello, great to be here.
So Luann has worked for co-ops and non-profits throughout her career. She is absolutely passionate about using her cooperative knowledge and her management skills to promote international cooperative growth. She's led 2 international cooperative development programs focused on increasing incomes and stimulating economic growth for farmers in several East African countries. And her agriculture, food security, market access and youth development experience span multiple countries throughout southern and eastern Africa, as well as Sri Lanka, Pakistan and India. Flippin' heck, Luann, this is amazing. She's also worked in the field of mental health recovery, social emotional learning and immigrant health in the USA. And she's also a director on the board of My Credit Union. So she keeps fairly busy. So I'll hand over to Sarah in a second, but just a few housekeeping rules before we get started. If you wouldn't mind keeping yourselves on mute, that would be great. As you will be aware, this session will be recorded and will be going up online. And please feel free to ask any questions to Luann throughout the session. Either type it in the chat box or put your hand up, and there will also be time for a few questions at the end. So Sarah and Luann, I'll leave it with you.
Thanks, Bex, and thanks everybody. As Bex said, we're a small but perfectly formed group, and please do put questions in the chat throughout if you've got any, but we will have dedicated time at the end. So again, absolute delight to welcome Luann. My interest in Luann is, we've got a strong background in the UK of international cooperative development at the college, and that's how we've overlapped with Luann when she was at Land O'Lakes, and now Deputy Chief Exec at OCDC. So we're absolutely delighted. So the theme really of these women's voices is to understand the source of a women's life. So, we understand the role of what Luann does, but actually we want to know what got Luann to where she is. So without further ado, my first question to you, Luann, is, can you tell me a little bit about growing up and entering early adulthood? And what were some of those key influences for you during that time? And if you want to do it through pictures, you're more than welcome to.
Okay, well, thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Bex. But before I even begin, just want to thank you for this opportunity. It's not often I take the time to just sit and reflect. And through this opportunity, it was really, really wonderful opportunity to think about my journey and where I've been. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And I guess, my role in cooperatives probably has a unique perspective than maybe others in this series. I work with peers to strengthen and champion cooperatives globally at OCDC. I've been there just coming up to a year now, but I've been familiar with them for over 10 years. So in my role as the Deputy Executive Director, I really have 2 goals. One is focused on increasing member satisfaction, and the other expanding OCDC funding. So our membership includes 10 U.S. cooperatives or NGOs heavily affiliated with cooperatives that implement U.S. Agency for International Development cooperative development programs. So you'll hear me use acronyms. So our members include ACDA IVOCA, Equal Exchange, Frontier Co-op, GenX, Global Communities, Health Partners, NCBA CLUSA, National Rural Electric Association, Land Lakes, where I used to work, and the World Council of Credit Unions. So my career path is probably similar to a lot in my OCDC family. So I will do my best to represent all today throughout this interview. But But for me, really, I have to be honest, cooperatives were not a concept that I was very familiar with growing up. I came to them later on and was just warmly welcomed by everyone in this field. My first exposure to cooperatives as a child was due to probably my neighborhood women that got my mother interested in shopping at a food cooperative, a food co-op. At the time, it was really just a 2-room building that had dry goods, and my mom liked the bulk spices and the dried fruit, and she got a 20% discount if she volunteered once a month. So I would go with her when she volunteered, and I can still clearly remember the smell of those bulk spice bins, and I really think that's probably my original understanding of a co-op, and that's of a food co-op. But I think, other experiences I had while I was young pointing me towards a co-op model and the co-op principles, though I didn't realize it at the time. I grew up in the suburbs of Minneapolis, Minnesota in the US. And though I left Minnesota at times, I still keep coming back. My childhood was, slightly different than my friends. I didn't go on trips to Disney World or ski trips. My family had a small hobby farm about 20 miles outside of town where my dad grew fruit, not to sell, but just as a hobby. And at this farm and in our own backyard, he grew and bred different variety of grapes, apples, cherries, plums, even some apricots. So I spent a lot of my free time, in the summer and the fall here in Minnesota, picking rocks out of the grape vineyard, eating, picking whatever fruit was ripe, and just being outside. I was involved in the Girl Scouts. I was also active in the 4-H Club, which is a program for youth and teens to complete hands-on health science or ag projects. So I was able to choose independent projects to work on and showcase them at the local fair. But I think my concern for community, kind of that core principle of cooperatives, was always in me at a young age. Likely, I'm sure was inherited and also modeled from my maternal side. My grandma was all about service to others, largely through her church, but she really took care of anyone and everyone in the community. And I was always very close to her. I spent many weeks at her cottage on the lake in the summer, and it was my absolute favorite place to be. And my mother, though a working mom through part of my childhood, has always had a spirit of service in her life as well. She was the person who really raised me and has always put my needs above her own, even today. She is always volunteering, caring for others, regularly drives neighbors around who don't have cars, volunteers at church and in the office at her senior living community where she lives. She still drives an hour each way every Thursday to volunteer in the oncology department of the closest Veterans Affairs hospital. So I think that's where I get my spirit of service. And while other kids did sports, music, travel during the summer, I chose things such as the summer camp that focused on volunteerism and getting to better understand diversity in the community, and day camps learning about animals at our local animal shelter. When I was older, I volunteered at the nursing home where my mom worked, and I was trained as a teen to be a crisis care peer. So that was kind of my niche from my childhood. But as far as family order, quite honestly, I was the typical third child. I was the baby of the family. I have 2 older sisters. They're science focused and always good grades in music and perfect, and their reputations preceded me in school. So I got it easy. All the teachers liked me because I was a Werner. they knew me from my sisters. I could say I took the black sheep route. I did the social sciences. I was more about people. And there are some photos, yes. So, thank you for breaking up my monologue. I appreciate it. That is me. I think that was in our backyard, me in the wheelbarrow, holding up an apple.
How old are you there?
Maybe 5.
Okay, cool.
I can read the date on the picture.
Your description of your childhood, by the way. I mean, the fact that you had your grandma, you could go and stay, by the lake.
That's that place, and it's kind of funny. So my grandma's the one in the middle. In the darker plaid in the middle, and then her 2 sisters that were still alive at the time, and then a cousin also in the middle. And it's funny. The lake was called Green Lake, and 10,000 lakes are in Minnesota. That's what we're known for. And of course, when I get older, about 6 years ago, I moved to a lake myself, and it's also called Green Lake, but it's a different lake. So I joke that I haven't gotten very far.
I love pictures of older women though, because I mean they look as though they're getting up to mischief, really. So it's great.
Yeah, I think of her with her sisters. You know, I could take charge attitude, get things done.
Yeah.
And this is at a family's hobby farm. That's my older sisters and me, and I don't know, I'm maybe 9 in that photo. So the grapevines. And I know you're having a heat wave there, so in England. So picture cool. So when I'm talking about like I grew up in Minnesota and grew fruit, people are like, what? Like I think people know there's apples in Minnesota, but apricots and cherries, yes. So this is what it looks like in January. But in June, July, August, we do have a summertime. It gets quite hot. So the snow may go up to the mailboxes.
Yeah, it's a lot now, isn't it?
We get extreme weather. So, I got permission from my sister to use that photo. I'm like, you eating snow? Are you okay? She's like, yeah, it's fine.
We won't tell her anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Can I lead us to segue to the next question? So
Perfect.
We've taken you through. We've got a sense of as a child and being in the hobby farm. Strong influence of your mum and your grandma are in service. So really, in terms of your career, I mean, what are the key ideals really? That have shaped your career and So could you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, happy to. And this is fun. I think when I think about this, grab your tea or your water, whatever you need. This may be another long one, so interrupt me if we need a break. But key ideals, I think. At a couple of points during my career, I've done a strength finders assessment, kind of looking at.
Can you explain what it is, Luann?
Yeah, it's one of those kind of tests, not necessarily a personality test, but looking at your strengths, where they ask you a gazillion questions. Are you more likely to do this or that? And you have to pick and choose, and then it ranks. I don't know if it's out of like 30 different. It's identified like 30 different skills, and then you can pay for like your top 5. You can pay for them to be all ranked, and then does a report about what you can do to strengthen the skills you don't have, and what kind of people you should work with, and how you should work with others. It's really loads of fun. And I think the results the first time I did it weren't really a surprise. Like I'm like, yeah, I know that sounds like me. It was validating though, because I think a lot of the strengths people have, they don't realize their strengths. And I think
what came out of that.
So I think my top 5 strengths when I did the first time was harmony, positivity, responsibility, empathy, and individualization.
Wow, great.
A new term I hadn't really come across before. And I jokingly would tell people, well, it sounds like I'm a hardworking hippie, because it's like I'm all about harmony and positivity and responsibility. But later on, it changed with different life experiences. 11 years passed, and I took it again, and it was slightly different, but still a lot of the same themes. And I think it shines through probably a lot in my work life and work with cooperatives. Like the hard work, the responsibility of working long hours, always saying yes, being engaged in volunteer opportunities, and always like if I said I'm going to do something, I get it done. The harmony and empathy, I think that's really served me well. Working overseas, working across cultures, reaching out to understand others. And is really key in cooperatives, a compromise, understanding others, because you are a democratic institution, and have to all work together. Positivity, I've honestly been scolded, but also encouraged for my positivity in the workplace. And individualization, so just kind of describe it like. What I remember at the time was it was all about seeing strengths of other people and what they can bring to a project. So knowing where to fit somebody else in and how their they shine and what makes other people shine, and helping them prioritize. So I'm like, okay, that was a new concept for me. But yeah, taking, like I said, I took it maybe a year ago now when I started at OCDC, and it was largely the same core ideals, the work ethic, the concern for communities, and the harmony are still there.
Yeah. And did you say that, I mean, we had a chat last week and you were saying about your experience, your international bug and working with the Peace Corps as well. Do you want to just explain a little bit about, because I was fascinated about that, you know, because we don't have that in the UK, the Peace Corps. So
oh yeah. Well, and yeah, I never really had a defined career path. I keep creating it as I go, and I think every step, like the Peace Corps, kind of led me to where I was going to go next, and where I am now. So yeah, so the Peace Corps is a U.S. government, I don't know if you say like agency or department, where they send U.S. citizens overseas to support development efforts. They deploy volunteers, really, to provide international development assistance. So I was, out of college, I had done social work, and I had done a summer abroad in Europe, and I had the travel bug, and I'm like, I'm ready. Let's go. Send me somewhere. So it's a 2-year commitment, and I'm like, put me on the first plane out, because I was like, I didn't have anything to do. I was done with the school. And so they signed me to work in the Eastern Caribbean.
Wow.
And then from there, they included 6 islands at the time. And from kind of like my launch orientation, they had me go to an island called St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I think that was tagged back because they were looking for someone with a 4-H background, and I was the only one who had that. So I lived on the windward side of the island and did 4-H club support. I worked with libraries. I did tutoring in English and computers, pretty much kind of the hub. Whatever came across and was needed. I didn't have like an assigned school I supported, so I was always searching for new projects.
Yeah, and I was just, show you some pictures of the Peace Corps as well, but it's also, the people you were meeting, the smells you were experiencing.
Yeah.
Do you want to maybe just give a flick? Because I think travel and that, it seems to have, just been talking to you last time, seems to have really shaped a lot of your. Yeah. So maybe just as you're talking through these pictures, maybe just reflect on that a little as well.
Sure. Yeah, and it was hard to just a few. I mean, the boxes of photos to go through, and this first photo, just to give some insight. This was the first village I lived in with my homestay. This was the elementary school down the road, and literally the Atlantic Ocean that was right on the sea is on the other side. So I don't know if you can tell, like there's a roof on the first building, but there was a building behind that really just got washed out by the sea. So it's black sand beaches, and it was rough surf. So I think you always get like, oh, you serve in the Caribbean, must have been rough. I'm like, well, like there was definitely some beauty there, but there's a reason why Peace Corps volunteers go there. So that was it was a school that had 2 different buildings, and I think the next picture as well is kind of the other building that kind of looks back up on the village. You see the hills and the topography. It was a volcanic island, so black sand beaches, and one of those little doors in the middle was the library, and that's what I kind of opened up and tried to get books donated for. It's probably politics at the time, but I think the prime minister at the time, the main competition was from this village, and so when he was elected, the first thing he did was order a new school to be built, and I wish I had photos of that. But this was a school that was there for largely the first 2 years I was there, the kids checking out books. So that was it. And then just for reference, this is another school. It was more inland, in the hills more, a different school I would go and volunteer at.
I guess it shows you, the power of, libraries and books and education in terms of how just crucial it is, I guess, in those communities. Well, anywhere, but especially in those communities.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, I'm trying to always get like donations or when people come and say bring books, but I think even finding culturally relevant books, it really is like, I'm like, oh yeah, like this book about like Minnesota winter, maybe was not something that, in the Caribbean they would understand as much. So really kind of eye-opening to see that.
Yeah. And
The-
is this picture you want to share now or a bit later? Or is it?
Oh no, this is fine. This is also, so this was the 4-H club that I talked about. I supported a few of them. I did a small project assistance grants for this one in particular, and they had 4-H day. They marched in the Capitol. So this was in the big city there, marching.
Wow.
The next one as well is a group of students I tutored. So just, yeah, you can, there's a bunch. I had fun going down memory lane. The next one, so a lot of the beyond 4-H clubs, there's other like nurse run groups or community youth groups, and one of the fun things they would do would have cookouts. So this is some of the girls doing a cookout at a local kind of sightseeing adventure. Oh, and this was a radio show. I don't know what I talked about, but me and another Peace Corps volunteer, they had a slot for Peace Corps show. It was like Peace Corps alive and well and SVG. And I don't know what I talked about. We would go up, I don't know if it was like once a month, to talk about different Peace Corps projects that some of our colleagues are doing. So there I am trying to be cool.
Very
radio show. And that one is, I had a holiday Christmas party with some of the neighborhood kids over at my house. So. Oh, they're all so big now. They're growing people. And then, yeah, probably this is maybe the last one in this series. So it is beautiful. Like, and this is my mom who came to visit me twice while I was there. She always travels to see where I am. But we went down to some of the islands in the southern part. It was St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And the Grenadines are more for like the rich and famous, people who yacht. They're the white sand beaches. And so we traveled down there. So there's kind of a glimpse of, yes, I was in the Caribbean and it was beautiful. So.
Luann, can I just ask, how long ago was this? When were you there?
2002.
Oh wow! So yeah, all the kids will have been really big. Are you still in touch with them?
Some of them. Like it is, yeah. I need to be better.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's. You want to go there now? I got together last month with a couple of my friends I served in the Peace Corps with. We met up in Chicago and had a great time. One of them I hadn't seen for 12 years.
Wow.
We're looking at doing a reunion in country next year. So we'll see if that happens. So it'll be fun to get together with, it's probably like I served with maybe like 10 people, and then there's people the year before you and the year after you. So it'd be nice to connect and see what it looks like now, really.
So Luann, we're going to carry on our journey. So
sure.
From the Peace Corps, you then went into a career. So do you want to talk through to working with Land O'Lakes, and so from then through to Land O'Lakes and OCDC? Do you want to?
Sure.
What then?
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, yeah, Peace Corps, I loved it. I was like, I want to be a Peace Corps volunteer the rest of my life, but I want to make a living doing it. So when my service ended, I went to get my master's in sustainable development, the School for International Training. One of the requirements to even be enrolled was you had to have the 2 years of international living experience, which I got from the Peace Corps. So it's like step by step, things just kind of fell into place for my career. I did internships from there. A big component was experiential learning. So I came back to Minnesota, did 2 unpaid internships. One was working on a program that developed the capacity of torture treatment centers globally. And the other was working at a nonprofit that provided community health programs for the local immigrant population in Minnesota. And it had a really small community health worker program in East Africa. In Minnesota, for people who aren't familiar, it has a little bit more open immigrant policies. So I think they say nearly 10% of Minnesotan residents are immigrants, and 7% are native-born U.S. citizens with at least one immigrant parent. So there's a need for that in our state. And that project hired me. I was working on a grant proposal, and we got funding, and so they hired me. So I worked on developing a network of community health workers in Minnesota. And I really only left that job. I literally moved right next door to the office right next door because there was an opportunity to work in an international mission-driven organization, which allowed me to travel to India a couple times, as well as Argentina and Uruguay. So
Wow.
step by step. And then about that time, like in Minnesota, a friend of mine, a woman I know well, she was forming an organization, a network of international development minded people within Minnesota to connect and share resources. And so I volunteered there doing planning social events, happy hours, and different learning events. And later, the chair of that organization was a senior manager who hired me to work at Land O'Lakes International Development.
Wow.
So I was just like, through that networking and being in the right place at the right time. I mean, that was the best time of my career. And in Minnesota, like, people want to work at Land O'Lakes because it is the biggest international development organization in the state. So it's quite fortunate.
So can I just, before we go on, it's just because I'm just seeing this theme of kind of curiosity, being really open-minded. Yeah, I'm just trying to think these things about you as a woman, you know, going through all this. It's, you know, you're networking yourself, you're, you know, so I think, is this a right representation, Luann, of yeah, it just seems, you know, so these opportunities, I mean, you create opportunities as well, don't you? So, I mean, like you say, you met this woman, put you in touch with Land O'Lakes, but actually you created those opportunities yourself as well. So, anyway, I just want to reflect on that.
Yeah, thanks.
You know what women do to make these opportunities happen, really. So, anyway, you're with Land O'Lakes now, so.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah, and this is kind of where, like, this is where I finally start cooperatives. So forget everything else I said. Now let's talk about cooperatives. Yeah, like I said, like, I had no idea. Like, I didn't have this path. Like, originally I was with youth, and then I was focused on health and immigrants. And then here I was working for like the second largest agricultural cooperative in the US, you know, the largest actually being in Minnesota, which is CHS. You know, the thing is,
isn't it? So it's Land O'Lakes, just to let people know what Land O'Lakes is. Do you want to just a couple of sentences?
Yeah, it's a federated cooperative, dairy farmers and ag. So it's you know, Land O'Lakes, people know it for like the butter and the dairy products, but it also does, you know, crop input, seeds, and feed. So quite large and branded all over.
I got into this world that, you know, about Land O'Lakes, really, it's absolutely enormous, isn't it? So
yeah, it really is. I had no idea either. And yeah, I think the employee training background was, you know, was my first kind of exposure to the cooperative model. And
yeah, just talk us through that in terms of so what did you do in Land O'Lakes in terms of where did you travel and what?
Yeah, so our division was called International Development, and it was a little bit maybe more of a corporate social responsibility part of the larger Land O'Lakes. So the larger Land O'Lakes, with, you know, entities everywhere, maybe didn't know that we had this international development division. We were fully funded by US government grants to implement development projects overseas. So I would say we had, you know, at any given time when I was hired, kind of in my role as a specialist, I'd have 6 to 8 different projects I would backstop in another country. So whether it was US aid or USDA, who gave us funding to support farmers or agriculture enterprises overseas. Like I said, it was not an income generating thing, but more of like that nonprofit, you know, corporate social responsibility. So I worked there as a specialist, kind of doing that backstopping role, and worked my way up to deputy chief of party and a chief of party when I left. So I was there 9 years, and really, you know, originally as a liaison supporting our staff overseas, the local team that would work on a project in country. I would support the startup, hiring, helping find an office, procurement, closeout, compliance with U.S. government rules, which is huge. Reporting, budgeting, work planning, donor communications, anything, procuring supplies and equipment. Like, each project had its own focus, whether it was procuring like local commodities to distribute, or helping develop dairy cooperatives, or working with livestock. Each project, you know, that was awarded based off of a proposal had different focus and different theme. And so I kind of became the Jane of all trade, helping with whatever, whenever. And
I'm going to go rogue slightly now. So,
Sure.
and with women, so because I know you've, because I was, one of my questions was, you know, how do co-ops help women? And you said, no, how do co-ops? Yeah, how do women support co-ops really? So it's, so
Yeah.
what, talk about that, what the role of women that you've met in those co-ops, and do you see, what do you see, you know, the role of women in those and how important they are?
Yeah, I think largely through my career, I had exposure with more nascent cooperative overseas. So I think key opportunities for women in cooperatives. What I learned and what I saw, really saw some stellar women who saw the needs and form their own female cooperatives, or like, heck with this. I can form my own cooperative. Like, I have my own cow, and we can do this, and I can have other women join, whether it's, you know, dairy or potato farmers or whatever. When they collectively come together, you know, they have democracy, they have their leadership experience, and they get better livelihoods, the economics, to have a voice and to make their own choices for what they want, and to earn an income through the network, through the cooperative, to be able to pool resources. And I think that's the beauty of it. And I fought to work on we had 2 cooperative development programs at Land O'Lakes, and I fought to work on them because I saw the sustainability of it. These projects weren't handouts. They were policy and people-centered business models, you know, that reach that last mile farmer, who otherwise won't have the market or access to the resources to sell their goods. So I kind of came on it from that agricultural perspective, from smallholder farmers throughout Africa, or even Sri Lanka, wherever the project was.
And it's a tangible feel, isn't it? You can feel just through that work the impact it has on people's lives, really. And I think I'm always just really curious about the role of women in those, the impact on women. And I find that, you know, women get more empowered, you know, in those spaces, really. So do you want to share some pictures as well? Do we have
I would love to.
From there?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Bex?
I don't have as many as I did with the Peace Corps, but a few. If any of my old colleagues are listening in.
Okay, fine.
So this one was Zambia. This was like a food distribution program. It was looking at sourcing local foods for emergency disaster relief. It was it was more about doing maybe the research behind it, like, you know, what are the quality checks for aflatoxins and stuff in order to procure maize and oil and stuff in country or within the region. So that was a unique one year, like Fast and Furious project. It was fun. I think like some of my first travels with Land O'Lakes was to Zambia. I went like 3 times, and like I was there so much they had to give me like a special like visa to be there because I was overstaying my limit. But the next project, so that was Sri Lanka. Like I supported a lot of dairy projects. I, you know, opened a lot of like dairy cooling tanks and vats and stuff. So here I am, I'm pouring milk into a vat. I went out there for a closeout actually. And, lots of it. Just always embarrassed about like the attention you get. I'm like, I'm just Luann. It's just me. You don't have to do anything nice. But this one's in Tanzania, and I ended up being there a month. I had to extend because they had some special visitors from the U.S. coming, and I was there filling in for the project lead when she was on vacation, and the women just adorned me with like typical Maasai things, and they're just fantastic. So I had to include a photo of the ladies.
Of course.
Treating me nice. And now this one, you know, I wish I could share more photos. Like this project really drew at my heartstrings. So it's the exact opposite of the cooperatives, which you talk about the policy and the sustainability and the business model. This was more of a handout project where we focused on handouts to girls who went to school in Pakistan. And I'd always wanted to go there, and I finally got to go there. And I'm the shyer person, don't like to be in the limelight, and hear that like I was there and they had a news reporter come, and I'm talking to them, and I'm like, this is like my worst nightmare, talking about girls' education. So but there was other photos of like me playing badminton, and they gave me dance lessons. Like I would show up at all these schools, and there was like big parties. I'm like, this is just over the top. But one of my staff would take took my camera, and they have just hundreds of photos of me at these events at these schools in Pakistan. So I didn't include all those with the faces, but there's one of me saying, "Are you real? Are you really going to interview me now?" So go ahead, Sarah.
No, and it's just these other two pictures actually, but where's this? Oh,
this was, when I was leading a cooperative development program. One of the final events I did was a research symposium in Kigali, where we brought, one of the goals of the project was to develop researchers within country, within the universities there, and within the region. So we brought together local universities and also some regional presenters to share their research on cooperatives. So this was what, 2018, I think I was in there.
Fantastic research. I mean, Land O'Lakes are doing some fantastic research now, actually.
Yeah. And then the last one also was with the.
Just hold on one there. One thing that was really interesting about that picture, there's not many women there at all, is there?
No.
Has that changed much in terms of like cooperative research in that region?
I think capacity strengthening is still happening, but I don't think it's changed much. I mean, I think you see Esther, you see some of the others from CUK who are there. There's some really good women mentors who could continue to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, you nailed it. And this one as well. This is a financial symposium. This was Kenya. Again, not as many women, but we were doing some research with SACCOs and their connection with dairy cooperatives or cooperatives in Kenya. And so this was a report out on research about how financial cooperatives can work with agricultural cooperatives. So this is more and more, I can't remember if it was Meru, it was more rural. It wasn't in Nairobi, Kenya, and that was also 2018.
So Luann, we've got 15 minutes left, I think, 20 minutes left, and there's quite a few things that we still need to explore. So we've got a question on, I've got a question on co-ops. So how have co-ops shaped you as a woman? So you've now been propelled into this life of working with international co-ops. So how has that shaped you as a woman in terms of what have they influenced? And then I'll scoop on to another question.
Sure, I'll be brief. I mean, I didn't realize how much working with cooperatives shaped me until I did a career shift a few years ago to work outside of international development and to work outside of cooperatives. I learned a lot about myself during that, and one of those was that even though I'm in a role that's that's service oriented and about improving people's livelihoods, I miss the cooperative field immensely. I think the cooperative bug is as real as a travel bug in me, and so I sought to work to tap back into the cooperative model again. So I applied to be on the board of my credit union and was accepted, and that gave me that that leg into that community still, and kind of fulfilled my cooperative soul. And I learned a lot, and I work with 2 other amazing women on the board. They're really great mentors, accessible and available, and have a passion for the community as much as I do. So
who were they? I'm just doing a name check. Who were they? Oh,
what's that?
Who were they? Who were those women?
Oh, well, Teresa's one of them, and Lynn is the other one. So we actually have a board meeting tomorrow. I got to read my documents and see how we're doing. So, yeah.
Okay, and so then moving on. So we've got, I mean, the importance of co-ops. We've explored how how you think the role of women in co-ops fits as well. But I mean, this is the big question. I mean, the key challenges of our times, and so one, what do you think are some of the key challenges of our times, and where do you think women and co-ops fit within that?
Yeah,
that is a big question.
It is a big question, and it's my worldview has been completely upended the last 5 years, I must say. Being from where I am, just the local upheaval. I realized I've seen things through rose-colored glasses a lot, and associated with people who share my sphere of thinking, and so wow, I'm like, We need to do better as a country, as a state, as a community, and there's so many things to fight for. It's overwhelming, but I really think that cooperatives are part of that. They play a role in uniting people, educating people, and advancing livelihoods. And kind of a plug for OCDC, where I work, our International Cooperative Research Group, they did a big study across 4 countries that proves that the cooperative model works in increasing one's trust in the community. Like, cooperative members are more trusting of their community. So it does work. It does help. It helps in so many different ways. So I think, like, if anything, I'm always looking for hope. I'm always looking for the young people, the education, because it's a lot. So it's overwhelming. We got a lot of work, and I always say in my role when I do international development, I want to work myself out of a job. I don't want to have to do international development. Hey, okay, I want to work myself out of a job and work for a cooperative next, but like, I don't want there to have to be a need for international development, and so that's why I keep striving, and that's what drives me, I think.
Yeah, and it just seems, I know, just from my own work, really, if there's loads of parallels between what you do in the global south and what you do in the UK or in the States. I mean, there's like food, the issues of food security at the minute, and all of it, really, it's relevant, and there's so many lessons that can be learned across both, really, in terms of, and it just seems like we're living in an age of complete cognitive dissonance, really. We think we're trying to make sense of the absurd, really, in terms of what's actually happening. And how can the co-op world really help bring some sanity back too, and some, through the values and principles, really. So it's just lots to be talking about. Anyway, but
yeah, I feel you.
But it's and women in this, so female role models. I know what we, so you've talked about a few women, your grandma and colleagues. So,
for sure,
female role models are really.
Yeah, I think I cut out for 1 second, but just role models. Yeah, of course, it starts with family, sisters, grandma, mom, and even my current family who puts up with my like crazy work schedule, like my spouse too. But I've been fortunate to have been pushed and nurtured throughout my career, and I want to say that, like, there's formal people who hire me and the bosses who like see me and say, hey, go do this, you figure it out, Luann. Like my first job, she found excellent talent and hired us, and starting from that job, everywhere I've worked with some really brilliant people throughout my career. And I was even reflecting, getting together with some old colleagues last year, and I'm like, wow, all the people I used to work with, they're out there doing really amazing things out in the world. And I think, you have your formal mentors, but then I had my peers and my colleagues that I think seeing what they're doing drives me to do more too. But formally, like that first boss, the board of that second organization really took a chance on me to be the only full-time person at the organization, and provided me with program management courses and mentorship I needed, and a couple great female bosses at Land O'Lakes, and a mentor that I asked. I wanted to get outside of my Midwest kind of nice attitude. So I asked someone to be a mentor who's from the East Coast, a more no nonsense, a sort of person that I needed to learn from. Absolutely brilliant woman. And she kind of is the one who, in her new business role, she helped open the door for me to become a deputy project leader. And then when the position became available to lead the project, like, it was a worst time for me personally, really the worst time, and I wasn't expecting it. But my former manager, like, who knew me, says, hey, this opening is for you. It's for your taking. The description is designed for you. And so even though I'm like, it completely caught me by surprise, and at the time I didn't appreciate it because I wasn't ready for that responsibility, I took it on and I nailed it. In the end, she knew me, and she knew that I wouldn't be happy to let the opportunity slide. She was right. Like, I worked hard. I found the right people to support me on the project, to fill in the skills that I didn't have. And we had an awesome project, on time, on budget, learning, connections made, and hopefully lives improved. So
it's interesting, that, Luann, around what other people can see in you, but you can't see in yourself, really.
Yeah.
So again, the power of, teams working collectively. you bring
You need those, yeah.
and there's a generosity there, isn't there, really, that allows you to nurture, really. So yeah.
You need those people through it. You need those people to champion you when you can't champion yourself, for sure. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that segues nicely to what message would you like to give to other women? So that, as again, you know, the purpose of these conversations really is for other people who are looking in and saying,
Yeah.
"That's amazing." You know, she's how has she got there? You know, and what is it? So, what message would you like to give?
Sure. Well, I'll channel my career advice maybe in two things. I would say, first, don't be afraid to change your mind and your path as you grow. Like you are going to evolve. I evolved, and you may not know what you want to do, but step by step, you'll find what you're good at and what you're passionate about and what makes you happy. So it will change, and it should change as you grow and you experience new things. So don't think you have to have all the answers from the beginning. And lastly, I think you mentioned this before, network in all caps. You know, throughout my career, I have formally or informally created networking opportunities. I think there is so much we can do better by learning from others, and really every enjoyable step I have taken was due to a personal network connection I have made. So if you're looking to network, message me, link in me. Like, I would love to network with you and get to know everyone who's out there listening to this right now.
Yeah.
So, that's my two big themes.
Yeah, and then the grades, you know, I mean, I'm just scribbling it down now. So thank you. We're kind of more or less coming towards the end of, I know it's been a whistle stop, you know, and when we're coming to the end of more or less the session, so we're going to leave, you know, 5-10 minutes if anyone's got any questions. But the consistent question, and we've got Helen Wiseman's on the call, so we interviewed Helen as part of this series, so, and she's had to answer this question too. But the question is, you're stranded on a desert island, and you have 3 items that you can take with you that can sustain you. With a range of responses. So what would your 3 items be? Okay.
And I think I only heard the answers from two people that I watched recordings of in the past. So I think I am going to play my positivity card and not get too lost into the semantics. I'm going to say that there's coconut trees on this island, and that I can harvest water and coconut water and
yeah, that's
and all that. So I'm going to say that that's there.
Yeah,
so
we'll give you that. It's fine. Yeah.
All right, going with the fun stuff. I am a water person. I love being around water. I love floating on water. So I need some kind of a floaty, whether it's like an inner tube or like right now I have a toucan floaty I like to float out on the lake with. So something to relax on the water.
So
a happy place.
Does it have to be in the shape of an animal? Does it or is it just a sensible?
It doesn't have to be. Whatever would be. You know, if I get desperate, I can try and paddle away. But that, you know, I am living with a positivity that someone's going to see me and come get me. So I'm going to relax and enjoy my time floating on the water. But I probably need a fishing pole. So like
a professional one, a proper, you know, that it'll get
to catch fish and something to eat and just something to watch, occupy my time. And then also, like, and this is maybe kind of inspired by getting ready for this, I think maybe it's actually 2 things. I don't know if it counts, but paper and pen, just to write my thoughts down, to write thank yous to all the people I need to send thank yous to. Like, even preparing for this and thinking about all my female mentors, I'm like, I need to reach out and connect with some of these people I haven't talked to in forever. So I think a pen and paper keep me occupied.
Excellent, because that was 4 items. So it's a pen.
Okay, so we could say, you know, maybe I could like write with charcoal.
We'll be fine. We'll give you. Okay, that's fine. That's
you can have that. That's okay.
And that's honestly, well, that's great. And I just love the idea of a floating. I love floating in the tube. So So I want to say thank you. So that's our conversation kind of coming to a close. But honestly, I would love anybody to ask any questions, really. So and knows the opportunity. So does anybody get any questions? Helen.
Hi there. Thanks, Luann. That was great.
Hi.
Nice to see you. I'm interested in, with all the sort of the wide experience that you've had and the fantastic experiences you've had. If there was one sector that you think the co-op could just, if it got a grip of it, it could transform society, the world, whatever. Is there one particular area that you think we just could get our arms around and really shake the world up?
Oh my goodness, that is a heavy question. And I'm representing, 10 different members who are from different sectors, from electricity to farming to financial. I'm going to say finance. I think a lot revolves around finance, and I think through credit unions, financing other cooperatives, I think they can be of support to them. So I think if you start with them and they learn how to work better with other cooperatives and to help them, whether it's an egg cooperative or a women's sewing cooperative or whatever it is, I think finance touches everything.
Yeah, good.
But
yeah, obviously here in the UK, it's sort of not. We've got the credit unions, but we haven't really got that, unlike sort of a lot of the European countries where they have cooperative banks. We just haven't really got that structure, and it would be really good to see that, come into being.
Yeah, I would
Just
say like, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Helen, I need to chat with you about this because there's some really interesting stuff going on with the Mutual Banks Association. Tony Green and me and Cliff Mills are doing quite a lot of work on this because it is massively missing. So it's really good to hear Luann speak about this, and it's something we definitely need to get on in the UK.
And the credit unions in the States are much more established and organised than they are here. They're much, they're not as they're just not as established really in the UK. So
Yeah, and I think, just seeing how my credit union supported its members during COVID, was just like stuff commercial banks wouldn't do, different loan forgiveness or waits. And I think there's just, banks support the shareholders, or credit unions are there to benefit their members. So, but, their members could be other cooperatives that need, funding for assets and inputs. So. Okay. Next question.
No, that's great.
That's good. And my, I don't know if my Midwest accent, may be hard to understand. So if you need me to clarify anything I said, I won't be offended. So feel free to ask any clarifying questions of anything I've said so far as well.
So does anybody get any other questions? I mean, Stacey.
I'll ask a question. So first of all, wow, I'm absolutely blown away at everything that you've done. I'm quite new to the cooperative world, only been around for like the last month. But out of all those amazing things that you've done and those amazing places you've been, is there anywhere where you think I've got to do that in the future, or I'd like to experience that in the future?
Oh my. I think I'm maybe either like cursed or benefit from this, but I think I have a really good sense of like where I am in my responsibility. So I think even when I started my career, I was like, heck no, I'm not going to lead a project. They called him chief of party, and it's like, no, but I think step by step, I'm like, oh yeah, I can do it. So like, I think I know when I'm ready for the next step. So as far as career wise, I think I'm happy where I am for a while, and I'm not dreaming of that next step. I would say, like, I'll take this question on like a personal kind of angle, is like, there's so many more places in the world I want to go. There's so many more people I want to meet. So I have like the dream places to go. I want to go to Morocco and Egypt and rural China, and so I think I want more exposure to other parts of the world. So I think that's kind of where I'm hoping I can go, or somehow finagle, whether through my career or somehow.
It was just on that note, Luann, I mean, when we were talking last week, and I made reference to it before, but you said about cultures, I wrote it down actually. It said, that when you explore the world, you smell new smells, you taste new food, you dance to new music, and you open your eyes to new cultures. And I thought that was a really, you know, it was a really nice way of just saying how important just experiencing somewhere else is, really. So and that kind of comes across in everything you've been talking about.
Yeah, it's really changed me. You know, that first trip has really changed me, and I often use a kind of quote like that when writing in a graduation card for somebody. I'm like, okay, go out, go taste new tastes, smell new smells, dance new dances, and that's, yeah, it's my my go-to advice for any young person, whether male or female. So,
Yeah, exactly. So
hey, Candace, thanks for the message.
Candace. So okay, any further questions before we wrap up? Okay, so Bex, do our next, so on Luann, thank you, and that's been, you know, it's just been a joy listening to you and just exploring your life for 1 hour. So so thanks for putting all that into an hour, and it's been, you know, and just thanks for being part of this series. Really, it's something that me and Bex are enjoying, you know, and it's an absolute privilege really just to listen to stories. So thank you for that.
Thank you for this opportunity. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, and we'll bring it to a close. We've got our next Women's Voice is going to be in August, and Bex, who are we speaking to again? It's have you got the name?
Heather Roberts.
Heather Roberts, who's the chair of the Heritage Trust, and so that we'll start promoting that. So it's going to be in August. So watch this space. But thank you again, Luann. It's, you know, this hour's been about you, and this is been recorded. We'll put it on YouTube and we'll put it on the website. So thank you very much.
Thank you.